Hi guys, I have a tutorial to share with you today. I'm doing a mixed media painting of, as it turns out to be, a little pussycat. So here you can see I have a Daler Rowley artist board, and I'm just going in with a couple of acrylic paints. They're not very expensive paints, they're just the cheap craft paint that you can buy from most hobby shops, and I'm using a few colours in like a teal and mint palette, which just happens to be my all-time favourite colour palette. Now I'm not being too precise, I'm not being too prescriptive. I kind of roughly know what sort of look I want, but other than that I'm not really too bothered about where the paint goes. I'm just freely enjoying myself, letting go, being in the moment and just going for it. I'm adding my paint directly onto the board. I'm not using a paint palette, I'm just literally just going for it and blending and smudging it in as I go. Was all nicely dried. I just took an ordinary run-of-the-mill black biro and I just did a few little doodles. I like to kind of do little squiggly lines and little doodles and things to a background because I think it kind of adds a little bit of interest, a little bit of a different dimension, textural element, all of those kind of fun juicy words. It's just something different and kind of makes you look a bit more at the page. I also vary the way in which I hold my pen. I start off holding it in how I would when I'm writing, and then I just kind of literally change my grip, change my fingers on the pen, and by doing that it kind of makes me work in a much different way, and it's quite fun to do. So I do some doodles and I let loose and I go to town and do some scribbles. Hard to do sometimes, but I really like the way it comes out. So now I'm just mixing up some modelling paste. I'm using the Daler Rowley modelling paste. Oh no, I'm not, sorry, I'm using the Winsor & Newton modelling paste with a Dylusions paint in that awesome vibrant teal colour, which I absolutely adore. One of my favourite colours. So just giving it a good old mix up until I'm really happy with the consistency and the colour potency that I want. So once that's all mixed up, I take my stencil and my palette knife and I just layer it on. I smooch it down. And what I do when I'm using modelling paste and a stencil is I leave my stencil in place for a little while. I don't remove it straight away. I leave it so that it doesn't set. It just kind of leaves it there for a little while just to make sure like the modelling paste is kind of there before I move it. So I leave it there, and I realise that I've got a bit of modelling paste left, on my palette knife. So I just kind of clean my palette knife off over the board, which leaves kind of like some nice random marks. It doesn't really add that much texture because it's not that bulky, and I am sort of smooshing it down with the palette knife, so it's not going to be that raised, but it just gives it some nice little extra details there. Once I've removed the stencil, I then take an old toothbrush, don't use a new one, an old toothbrush, and I water down some of that teal coloured paint, and then I just flick and splat across the page. It gets really messy when you do this, so just cover anything up that you don't want to be splatted, but it's really fun to do. Oh, make sure you cover your clothes. But yeah, it's really fun to do, and I just like the random variety that it gives me. Some of the blobs were a little bit too big, or I wasn't so keen on them, so I just used my finger and just kind of rubbed them in a little bit, just to move them around. is already dried. Make sure it's dry, otherwise you will wreck your nibs on your pens. And I'm just literally going in, just making a few little random white marks. This background for me is all about the mark making, just to add some sort of a visual stimulation to the background. And I really love the way that a white pen looks over a dark coloured background. So next it's time to start drawing the cat. I sometimes freestyle it with a paintbrush, but on this particular one I wanted to draw it first just to make sure that I'd got the cat exactly where I wanted to. So once I was happy with my drawing and it was all where I wanted to be, I then painted it in using white paint. So again, making sure that the paint had dried on the background, I then went in with my pencil and just added a few details, the eyes, the nose, the ears, and just kind of some like stripy markings that I wanted the cat to have, just so I knew where they would be. I knew I wanted to have black markings on the cat and pink ears and pink nose, so I just go for it. You'll see that on the markings I started with using black acrylic paint, then I changed my mind and I switched to a black Posca paint pen. I love using my paint pens, so any opportunity I can I will use them. So yeah, just literally just going in and adding in those details. So once those paint details are all dry, it's time to bring out the oil pastels. I use the Crayola Portfolio series, which I absolutely love, and I'm literally just going around adding some of the oil pastel and then using my thumb to smudge it and move it around to give it that smudgy look, to give it some shading, to give it some details, to give the cat like a raggedy, worn look, like he's just come in from a night in the garden, that kind of thing. I didn't want it to be like stark white. I wanted to animate my cat, give it some shading, give it some dimension and definition, and I absolutely love doing that with my oil pastels. I also add colours that you wouldn't necessarily expect, like I add some orange to the cat. Again, that's just to sort of give it that bit of visual interest and to make it look a bit interesting. And for those of you that are into kind of like your colour wheel stuff, your colour theory, teal and orange just work really, really well together. So that's him all done. All that's left now is just to sign and date it, and then it's all ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed watching how this came together, and if you have a go and try one yourself, do tag me in your photos on social media because I'd love to see. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.